Wow, perfect attendance 2 nights in a row. This is nice, especially with everything that's going around in terms of flus and strains and all that kind of stuff.
Looks like half our building's out sometimes.
Yeah, I think that
Attendance.
the faculty absentee list seems to get longer each day, and unfortunately, the majority of end up being no sub. No sub.
Yeah, we know that.
It's like, what's happening
Well, that
in those
goes.
classrooms these days?
Because they don't pay the subs enough to come in.
Right, yeah.
What is it, $85 or something? That's not
Yeah.
worth it. If you have to-
75 in my district.
If you have to have
Yeah,
a
it's-
sitter or something on top of it, it can't be worth
That's
it.
ridiculous.
Yeah, but it's
75.
really the
That's
best way to
what,
get your
that's
foot
what
in the door
like
though,
30
too,
years
so.
ago when I subbed, it was like that.
Not the best.
Yeah, well, and I mean, they say when the economy starts to improve, then it's harder and harder to find people that want to sub or drive buses or, you know,
I
No,
wouldn't
all
drive
that.
a bus no matter
Or work
what
in
they
cafeteria.
pay.
Or working the, yeah, that's our big marquee in front of the school. One of the things is, you know, paras, subs, and cafeteria and bus drivers needed. And it's just like, they've had that all year because it's been all year.
Mhm.
So,
Nobody wants that.
yeah. All right, so welcome to, it is Wednesday, yes. Tonight, the biggest focus tonight is feeding off of the one forum from last week, which was what is a game? So we are going to be discussing that tonight. There is an article that we're going to take a look at that will get us most of the way, I think, to a good working definition. There are a couple of tweaks that I like to make to this person's definition. But that's going to be the main focus tonight. We're going to start by just looking at getting a working definition of game, and then do kind of a second discussion about how there's sort of 4 main elements in the definition and how each one of those is impacted when you put it into an educational setting, because that's the other piece of it. You know, just making a game is one thing, but we want to make games that are educational, and sometimes some elements of some games work counter to what we are all taught in terms of what you are supposed to be doing in a classroom. So how do you address those issues or work around those issues so that you can still have something that is truly a game and achieves all the things that a game can achieve, and yet at the same time be balanced with good teaching strategies and teaching techniques. And then we are going to talk tonight about the game groups. And I made my little spreadsheet of what everybody put down and who responded to which ones. And it does seem like there's a couple of themes that have kind of grown out of those discussions. So we will leave tonight hopefully knowing what our groups are going to be, because then that'll lead into 2 weeks from now when we start seriously talking about the game projects. To review, I said this already tonight, but I know not everyone was here, but we do not have class in here next week. And it's not even, I'm going to move the class online situation. We're just literally, it's just an empty week, and I just kind of pushed everything back from there. This was a planned one. And so the main thing is, for the next couple of weeks is to get those Powtoon projects kind of put to bed and finished up.
So just to reiterate, anything that says 226 on there really becomes 3.2 or 3.3, whatever it ends up being. Because like I saw something on there.
Well, there is a placeholder in there that is for next week, but there's nothing in it.
Okay.
So I still called it week 6, but there's nothing in there. So the next class we meet is here, I'll pull it up right here.
And things aren't due until that class.
Correct. Yeah. Tonight it says week 6 and 7. So it basically, this is stuff to be worked on over the next 2 weeks. Week 6, I guess I hadn't unhit it yet, but week 6 there's just nothing in it. It's just an empty week. So week 7 is our next kind of actual week of class. So whatever we leave here with tonight, you've got 2 weeks now to work on that. But the main piece of that is the Powtoon projects, so that when we do come back in 2 weeks, we can kind of hit the ground running with the games and get those underway and get those going. Yes, and so that's kind of that. So before we jump into the discussion of games and all that kind of stuff, what are there questions or concerns? I know every week I know people come in and they start asking questions, and that's great, and please do that. But is there anything maybe particularly related to getting the Powtoon projects finished? Any issues you've run into? Questions you have? Anything along those lines?
I just feel like we need, I think we had in the beds class some time in here to be working on it so that we can troubleshoot with help.
Okay.
Cause like, I mean, I can figure it out, I suppose. I'm taking the one that I did as a sample and making it into
Okay.
a longer one.
I mean, the other thing you can always do, because as long as you've done that, connected to the class to me, is if you have questions or something's going, you can always shoot me an email or message because I can look at the project in its state at that moment. So that's also an option too. If there's something specific you want me to take a look at or have a suggestion
No,
for,
I haven't
just kind of.
started working on it since just decided to take the one that I had
Mm-hmm.
and what the vision I had for it and make it a little bit longer and make it better.
Gotcha.
So I don't know what
Okay.
I'm gonna come across, but that
Gotcha.
lab time is nice, that's all.
Okay. I mean,
I don't know how everybody else feels about it.
yeah, I mean, I obviously wouldn't be here, but Dr. Bed is
Oh,
here
I don't
on.
mean anytime in
Yeah.
particular. I just meant over in general.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess especially with the game projects, we are going to be transitioning into more like time out of each week's class we'll have.
Okay.
And we might have some tonight. I don't know how long it's going to take to get
So,
through all of this.
I think
but-
what she's saying, if for some reason, since we aren't gonna get any feedback necessarily until the 4th when it's due, if they don't come out perfectly, we'll have a chance to re-edit them
Sure.
if they're unacceptable.
Yeah, I love revising and revisiting. And
Well, you're gonna
Yes.
give us feedback on our ID. plan.
yes, yeah. Now since
Oh,
I mean the ID plans, I'd said in terms of a time frame, if they could be completed this week, then moving forward, you're just working on the execution. So now that sort of today has passed, what I will do over the next couple of days is take a look at least all the ones that have been submitted and provide some feedback on them if I see things. So that'll also give you some of the development side, the design side of things, some feedback before you really get too deeply into executing. So I will be looking at those over the next couple of days. And if it's not been submitted yet, then that's fine. And as soon as I see that it has been submitted, I'll try to catch up with those too. So if they're already in, I will over the next couple of days take a look at whatever's in already, and provide some feedback there.
Okay, and I think you said, or maybe you could clarify, that we should do a voiceover, I think it said on the requirements.
Yes.
For each slide, or,
No, it doesn't need to be on every slide. If there are slides where it's more appropriate just to have a visual happening, that's fine. It's more, I mean, again, that requirement is, I don't want to force you to do something that's going to work against whatever the educational goal is. But I do want to make sure that you've had an experience with getting voiceovers in. So I left it optional whether you wanted to do it through the method of the whole Powtoon voiceover or the slide-by-slide voiceover. But yeah, that is one of the things. And the same thing with the music. Like, yes, I understand that there are Powtoon projects that probably don't need music, but just to have had that experience of making sure that you can add music and add it in a way that's appropriate and it doesn't get in the way of the voices, sort of a thing. So good question. Yes.
Does it, can I find someone to help me to record the voice, or is it need to be my own voice?
That's a good question. If you want to use someone else as your voice talent, I think that's fine, because it's really the goal. I'm not assessing you on your acting ability. It's more on your ability to use voiceovers in the context of the Powtoon. So if it was a class where it was about how well are you speaking and what's your enunciation like and all of that, that would be one thing. But really the goal of this project is more the technical side of, can you incorporate a voiceover into the Powtoon? So yeah, if there's another voice that you would rather have be the voice of your Powtoon, that's fine.
So we can all do that.
Yeah. I just, it's the only reason I hesitated was because I nobody's ever brought that up, and so I just sort of never really considered it. But yeah, I'm fine with that. I mean, I don't like the way my voice sounds on a lot of recordings, so there are people I go to if I need a voice done because I'm like, you have a really great voice. You know those people. Like, there's always a couple people, on a staff or faculty where you're like, that person sounds like a radio announcer, So, but sure, yeah, if you really can't stand the sound of your own voice and there's someone else you'd like to use that would work better, or for whatever reason, it doesn't have to be that, but if you just think that using a different voice is more appropriate, then go for it. So, all right. So anything else as far as, I guess it is mainly the Powtoon because that's the big project that is coming down the pike here, or is currently passing us on the pike. I don't know, whatever the analogy would be there. So we're good? Okay. Well, like I said, because it is 2 weeks until we see each other again, don't hesitate to be in touch if you do run into issues, have questions. If it is, if you've done that on the Powtoon thing of linking it to the class, then I can look at it at any time. So if you really get stuck or something's just not working right, or you want a suggestion or some feedback while you're in process, I don't want to, I'm probably not going to go in and just go wild spelunking and opening people's projects up, because some people probably don't want people looking at their projects until they're at a certain point. But if you want me to look at something at any time over the next couple of weeks, just shoot me a quick email and let me know what you want me to look at, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I will say, with the one caveat, that the reason we don't have class next week is because that's our production week for our musical. So I am going to be involved with that quite a bit, but I will get back to people as soon as I possibly can. And if I get bored sitting in tech rehearsals, I can look at people's Powtoons, which will probably be more exciting.
So if we have a quick question, should we do it through Remind, or should we do it through the Moodle for the questions and concerns of?
If it's a choice between those, I'd go with the email or Remind. The truth of the matter is that Remind, because I got it linked to my watch, honestly, anytime somebody posts a Remind message, I actually get a notification immediately on my watch.
So over the last 5 days, his hand has not stopped.
Yeah, it buzzes a lot.
When they were in Quebec, the number of notifications we got was just.
Well, actually, I didn't get those because my wife was the one that was actually on the official list for that, so it wasn't blowing up because of that. But email is also good too, because I have email also linked to most of my devices, so I tend to see those two first. It does, the way that the Moodle's set up is, if somebody does post to one of those forums, I do also get an email from Moodle saying somebody has asked a question, sort of a thing. But that, I don't always see those messages, and sometimes those types of messages will get filtered out in a clutter folder or something like that. So best would be either Remind or direct email straight to me. So, all right, well, I'm looking forward to seeing those develop and seeing those get finished up. Always fun. I know I had promised a Powtoon of your inspirational sayings from the beginning of the course. I'm going to work on that. That's my Moodle project over the next couple weeks. So when we reconvene in 2 weeks, I will have a little show and tell of my own to demonstrate for everyone as well. So, all right. So that's the recap, and any updates, so on. So let's turn our attention to games. So what I loved seeing in the posts on the gaming question was how many of you said, I really wanted to look this up, but I tried to be good and I didn't look it up first. And then the flip side, which I didn't think to say anything about, was then how many people after they did their post then went out and looked it up and like said, oh, I wonder how close I got, or anything like that. But looking at the posts, there were definitely some themes. So one thing to ask, one place to start here. I'm just going to throw a blank page up here so I can throw some notes in here. So if the challenge if what we're trying to get to is a definition of a game. And I know we've got a couple of language arts teachers, I think, in the room, but a definition, A, can't use the word you're defining in the definition, and B, needs to be detailed enough that you can use it to really eliminate anything else. It should be like a test where you can feed something in and say, I wonder if this is a game. And you can run it against whatever's in the definition. And if it makes it past all those gates, you feel pretty confident saying, this is a game. And if it goes into that definition and something doesn't line up, then you can say this isn't a game. So we're kind of looking for whatever you want to call them, characteristics or elements or properties or criteria for if we were to write a definition of a game, like what are the things that would have to be in that definition, do we think, in order to call something a game? So anybody have, there were things, and you can, if you remember what you had in your post or want to look up what you put in your post, but what we don't even have to necessarily write a definition here, but just like items, like what things should be in if we're going to consider something a game.
I think I said, I didn't look it up yet. Have an objective.
Okay, so some sort of a goal. All right, and in a typical game, how do you typically know that the objective's been met? Right, the game ends typically, right? Somebody achieves whatever the objective is, and either that is the end of the game, or at least that person is declared the winner, and then the rest of the people. I always hated that. My sister loved playing the game of life when we were growing up. Not my favorite game. But the thing about that one is, especially when it's the two of us, like if she finished, then you still, as the other player, you still have to kind of go through and finish everything and then you're just, it's like, the game's over. I know you won.
I agree. The game always kind of fizzled. It was always exciting in the beginning, and then.
Yeah, it's interesting. But all right, so some sort of an objective, a goal that's sort of, this is when the game ends or a winner is declared. So what else? Is that all we need to, just something has an objective and we can declare a winner? That's a game?
Rules.
All right, does everyone agree?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it can't just be random, like, this is, what was it, Calvin Ball? Anyone who was a Calvin and Hobbes fan. What were there? There were never rules. They would just do crazy things, and then someone would say they were the winner. So,
That's how my daughter plays Monopoly.
yeah. That's how my sister used to. See, where she got back at me then was we would play chess, and I loved playing chess, and she hated playing chess. So she would always sabotage the game in various ways. Like, she would purposefully set up her queen and king reversed from where they were supposed to be. And then she would argue with me that she was right and I was wrong. And so then inevitably I'd go grab the encyclopedia to look it up and prove to her. And while I was out of the room getting the encyclopedia, she would switch hers back and switch mine. And so by the time I got back, I was the one who was wrong and she was right. And then more than once in the middle of the game, she would just flip the board over. So
Younger, or is it older?
younger, about a little over a year younger. So, all right. So some sort of system of rules. So if we establish rules, and then we reach an objective using those rules, is that enough to be considered a game?
It's gotta be entertaining or have, I guess that comes under purpose or educational, I think. I don't know what that would really.
Engagement?
Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's a better word.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, not every game is educational. There's a lot of
True.
games
Well,
that
in
are
our-
just
Yeah.
in our
Supposed to be
field.
fun.
Yes.
In our world
So,
right now, yeah, okay.
Yeah, we have time to play.
all right.
You need a competitor.
What about solitaire?
I mean, that
Yeah.
was where I was
Right.
thinking, I'm like,
Yeah.
in
Well-
most games, you need, like, you're playing against somebody, but, like, there is.
Well, what about
Usually,
that question though? Of solitaire,
compete against your own score at time.
your own score, or you're really competing against
Deck.
the deck or against the rules or against whatever structure you're having to work in. So, I mean, I think by saying that there's a winner, that kind of implies that we have
Competition.
competitors that are happening that are part of it. All right. What else? I mean, kind of just keep asking yourself. So, is this enough? If I take two objects and say, are either of these a game, is being able to say that it has this, 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 and this, is that enough to call something a game or not? I'm not trying to lead the conversation either way. I'm just trying to state that as, do we feel good about
We're
this?
talking about educational games? Or
Just games in general. Just
Shoots and
it could be
ladders?
shoots and ladders. It could be, Go. It could be the game of life, Monopoly, Uno. You guys are going to hate Uno in
We
2
need
weeks,
some
by
kind
the
of
way.
a-
I'm just going to give you a heads up.
Something, some kind of, like cards or dice or what else, all those things.
What do we think about that one? Like
Does
the
it need to-
materials
does
or
it have
the?
something like to play with?
Can you think of games?
Yeah, there's lots of games where you don't need anything but two people talking.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Okay.
But-
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say the hands are a thing in
Requirement
that
for that.
case, but yeah, I mean, there are Go masters who play the games without a board and without playing pieces. They can keep track of the entire game in their heads, and they will compete against other people just by like a true Go master. In the middle of a game, you're supposed to be able to wipe the board clean, and they can recreate the exact state of the board, because that's just. Do you guys know what Go is?
What's it? I'm sorry.
So Go is the super simplified modern version is Othello, the black and white tiles on the grid where you capture pieces and they get flipped black, and then they get captured and they get flipped white. Go looks a lot like that. It's usually on a larger grid, and it's black stones and white stones, and it's about controlling space on the board. But it's considered to be strategically one of the most difficult strategic games. The rules are super simple. It does not take long to learn all of the rules of Go, but the strategy behind it is such that computers can play chess and can play chess at the level of humans and above level of humans. They have not yet successfully taught a computer or an AI to play Go, because the strategies are just so varied. It's an interesting game. It's a very, very old game. It's I believe it's Chinese, actually. I think the original game is.
How can you play in your head? Don't you need the black and white?
They can keep track of the whole game in their head. They know every spot on the board and whether it's black or white.
Can you
Yeah,
do that?
it's a real mental exercise.
Well, I guess my question is, what's the difference between a competition? So if you look at like a race, like a relay race,
Okay.
because that has an objective to get across the line. It has rules like you
You
can't
can't
go until
push each other.
Yeah. I mean, I guess so. I guess a competition. So I guess the game, something about it makes it a little less
Okay.
serious.
So that's
if I were to differentiate.
okay. Or is there something we're missing? Because that's a good point to bring up. I mean, this could be sports, right? Is a sport? I mean, here's we get into semantics, because we do call, I play the game of football. Is that truly a game, or is there something we're missing here, or?
Like, is a boxing match a game?
I think that
Because there's an objective, there are rules. The people are engaged certainly, and I
fun
guess
though?
they're having fun. I mean, that's, and there are competitors, and there's a game. The game ends, and the boxing match ends, and there is a winner declared. So, is that truly a game? Are we comfortable saying that seems to fit our definition so far?
Football and basketball, I get, but the boxing one, or, like mixed martial arts or something, that would be, I don't know.
I mean, because it meets
It
this,
meets
right?
those criteria.
It meets these criteria. So that either means we have to say that those things are games, or we have to say we're still missing something here.
Well, I guess that brings it down to a level of skill. Like, you guess none of us Googled it.
That's okay.
No,
That's,
I didn't do it on purpose, I really wanted to, but I came in and I'm like, oh, because I thought that was part of the thing.
yeah, no, that's totally fine. No, I
So,
this is exactly kind of where I want us to be, because to be honest, I mean, you guys are basically like 4/5 of the way there. There is
What's the part where-
generally one more element that goes into a
Is there
game
something about
definition.
chance?
Actually, in a weird kind of way, yes, it's kind of about chance.
that's where I wonder if the skill level, like the fact that everybody who
Yeah,
plays the game has
and
an
it's-
equal.
And it's kind of obliquely connected to that idea too. So I'll stop, torturing you.
Thank you.
So,
And I do have, if this works for me, what's going on? Oh, whoops, I see what I did. I typed in the wrong box. Has anybody done that yet on their Moodles?
Yes, I know.
I do that about once a week. So on the class Moodle, there is a article here. It looks longer than it is because there's some graphics and he gets into some things that are not needed necessarily. But this is, I'm not going to say that I 100% agree with everything he says, but it was one of the better things I could find where he was kind of really addressing this issue. And he really gets into, what is the difference between this and this, which we both might call these things games, but why is this one really a game and this one is really a something else? So we'll just take a little bit of time and give people the time to read down through this article. It's on. You might have to reload the class Moodle because I just unhid it. See, here I am. I was trying to keep people from.
Is it called game requirements?
I.
no, I don't.
Game definition article.
That's it.
There we go.
Yeah,
Okay.
I will see. I tried printing something from this printer last
I
week
did
and it
last week.
didn't make it, but I can.
Two-sided, so you could save paper.
Yeah. Does this? I don't think this printer does double-sided.
Oh, no, it goes more settings. Oh, there you go, down.
Oh, there we go.
Right there.
There we go. Flip
Yeah,
on long
that's
edge.
it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, there it goes.
See, I had this problem last week. For some reason, this computer doesn't.
Try it.
Yeah, you might have better luck than I do, because you did print something last week, right? Oh, was that you or was that me?
Print two, so,
You want me to go?
oh, okay.
Be in the high maintenance. Do the-
Literally hot off the press. And I will say, as you're reading, sometimes he kind of gets into really specifics about a particular game. That stuff is kind of not as important as his larger picture things of when he's addressing what factors he feels make up a game. So if you want to kind of skim past some of the stuff when he gets a little bit digressive in terms of a specific game,